It may sound incredible, but the history of automobile racing dates back to the 1890s. However, it goes without saying that the real boom came at the beginning of the last century. Technological progress and the fascination with the completely new possibilities that were opening up to humanity at that time led to a tremendous flourishing of motorsports. In 1906, the first race called a Grand Prix was held in Le Mans. In the 1920s, the French Grand Prix was joined by other countries' Grand Prix, and the idea of an annual championship consisting of several regularly recurring races was born. This idea would never come to fruition until World War II. In the years 25 to 27, the World Championship was held, but only as a competition of brands, not drivers. In the 1930s, 6 editions of the European Drivers' Championship were held, the last 3 editions of which were completely dominated by German racers on German machines. However, the year 1939 was coming, and Europe would soon have completely different concerns than car racing. After the war, the world wanted to return to racing as soon as possible. The International Automobile Federation, now known as the FIA, began preparing the World Drivers' Championship in 1946. It created a set of rules and regulations, a kind of formula that cars had to follow in order to be allowed to compete. This is where the name comes from. Formula 1 is the name given to the regulations for the strongest royal category, which will determine the world champion in the future. However, it takes until 1950 before the inaugural season is launched with great fanfare. It consists of 7 Grand Prix. The curtain rises on the very first one on May 13th at the British Silverstone Circuit. Among the 200,000 tense spectators is also King George VI, with his wife and the younger sister of the late Queen Elizabeth, Princess Margaret. It is the first time in history that an English monarch has personally participated in motor racing. The first chapter in the now colorful and fascinating history of Formula 1 will be written by a total of 21 drivers on the stands of 5 brands. The race will be completely dominated by Italian Alfa Romeo cars. They will occupy all 3 first places. The Italian Giuseppe Farina will win. Giuseppe Farina later won the overall championship and became the first in a long line of world champions. From today's perspective, however, it is almost equally interesting to note that the very next race in Monaco saw the first participation of Ferrari cars, and that this brand is the only one that has survived in F1 from the premium season until today. The comparison of the 2 cars is more than charming. And what are Formula 1 races like today, 67 years after their premiere? Thanks to perfect television broadcasts, everyone who is even slightly interested knows them well. They are a huge dance of money and also a show of advanced technology, at which the mind sometimes stands still. This is how, for example, they have managed to transform over the years and shorten the necessary pit stops. Thanks to ever-improving technology, F1 Grand Prix are now much safer. Unfortunately, numerous tragedies of the past have contributed to this. One of the most terrible was the moment when Roger Williams burned to death in the wreckage of his car in 1973. For the lonely and futile efforts of his compatriot David Purley to free him. Niki Lauda's accident, from which he only miraculously escaped alive thanks to the help of other drivers, and which permanently disfigured his face, is notorious in its entirety. And the death of 3-time world champion Ayrton Senna in 1994 still haunts thousands of his fans. They cannot accept the official explanation that a damaged steering column made his car completely uncontrollable. Since Senna's death, significant changes have been made to enhance driver safety, thanks to which the world of Formula 1 has only had 1 loss since then. In 2014, Frenchman Jules Bianchi was fatally injured during the Japanese Grand Prix. Finally, let's add a few more records, which are worth noting. The most successful racer of all time is the German Michael Schumacher. He has 7 world championship titles and won a total of 91 Grand Prix. This figure is also interesting. He drove more than 24,000 kilometers in his career at the head of the races. The most Grand Prix races in his 18 years of racing were completed by Brazilian Rubens Barrichello, 326. On the other hand, the shortest Formula 1 career was recorded by German Ernst Wolf. He participated in only one race, the German Grand Prix in 1953, and due to a technical failure at the start, he drove only 150 centimeters. The oldest participant in history was the Frenchman Louis Caron, who drove a practice for the Monaco Grand Prix in 1958 at the age of 58. On the other hand, the youngest driver was the Dutchman Max Verstappen in 2015. He drove the Australian Grand Prix when he was 17 years old, and theoretically, he shouldn't have a driver's license yet, but he proved that he can drive a year later. When he won the Spanish Grand Prix at the age of 18, he became the youngest winner in history. And for completeness, the oldest is the Italian Luigi Fagioli, who won the French Grand Prix in 1951 at the age of 53. There are other interesting facts to be found. The biggest star of the 50 years, the Argentine Juan Manuel Fangio, managed to win a full 24 of the 52 Grand Prix he participated in. Almost 50% success rate is something that will be difficult to beat in the future. It will be similarly difficult to beat the record of John Watson, who managed to win the race in the USA in 1983, although he started from 22nd place. And finally, there is the unique achievement of Jochen Rindt, which no one will probably ever beat. The Austrian driver had a fatal accident in 1970, but the points he gained were enough for the championship title. He is still the only driver to become world champion after death. Despite all the indelible tragedies and glorious records, the world of Formula 1 is still racing ahead. This year, there are spectacular Grand Prix races planned, with the closest one taking place this Sunday in Australia. The next world champion will be announced at the end of the racing year, and whoever it is, it doesn't matter. He will forever secure a place in the gallery of the greatest giants that motorsport has ever had.